flooring it, flooring it, flooring it, flooring it. Ciao, I'm Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and today I'm driving a 2022 Fiat Panda. And this is not going to be a review because the third gen Fiat Panda has been out for 10 years, and I think everything that needs to be said about how this car drives and how it feels has been said by now. No, I'm going to rant about this car. And not because I don't like the Panda. I think the Panda is a very competent, city car, small car. It's got 5 doors, it's got reasonable amounts of space, it's snippy to drive. But this is a very, very obvious rental car, as evidenced by the fact that it doesn't have interior carpets, by the stickers all over the car, and by the fact that this car does not even come with a radio. Instead, it has a little tray here. But the thing that annoys me is not that this car doesn't come with a radio, because obviously it is a very, very, very base spec, so a real stripper, something I like, but I don't mind. It's a rental car. Still, having a radio in a rental car could be a nice thing, but this is not my rental car. This is one I just borrowed quickly a couple of days ago to go and buy some lactose-free butter. And I have to say, for this, the radio delete tray came very useful because it's a perfect butter tray. It's not cooled, but you can't have everything, right? Anyway, I borrowed this car, I've driven it down to the shop, and then I realized a little symbol lighting up in the instrument cluster. And at first I didn't realize what it is, and then I thought about it, and there is a goat in the middle of the road. Okay. At first I didn't really get what it was, but then I realized it would light up whenever I let off the gas. So to me it looked like, wait, is this regen? Does this car harvest, braking energy and stuff like that? I mean, why? This obviously isn't a hybrid because, it's a manual. It's got even a 6-speed manual gearbox, and it doesn't feel like a hybrid at all. Then I actually got out of the car and I read what the rear said, and it said hybrid. And since I personally drive a hybrid, and I'm actually quite a fan of hybrid, I was a bit perplexed. Then I found out that this is a so-called mild hybrid, and that's usually when my eyes start spinning in my sockets, because I think mild hybrids are just dumb. And in this case, this car, it's particularly dumb. Because you see, the engine in this car, in this 2022 Fiat Panda, is the so-called Firefly engine. It's a new 3-cylinder, 1-liter engine that's made by Stellantis, Fiat Chrysler, Fiat Powertrain, whatever they're called right now. And this is a very new engine, but this is also kind of the only engine that's being offered in this car, because you can have this car with this 1-liter mild hybrid engine, or at least here in Italy, because I am in Italy right now, with a 1.2-liter methane engine, which runs on natural gas. The methane engine, I believe, is the old fire engine from the 80s, so it's not very modern. The engine in this is brand new, but what annoys me is the engine it replaced was a much better engine. Because you see, this thing has 3 cylinders, it has about 70 horsepower, and the engine it replaced before was the TwinAir engine, the probably infamous 2-cylinder engine, which produced a very, very distinctive sound. But that engine had the advantage of being a really, really good, really modern engine. It had fully variable valve timing and opening angle on the valve train with Fiat's multi-air technology, hence why they made a 2-cylinder version, so that it would be less expensive to build than a 4-cylinder, because this multi-air technology is more expensive than, conventional valves and stuff. But that engine was available in turbocharged form, and the 0.9-liter turbocharged version produced about 100 horsepower, and it basically had the same fuel consumption and the same CO2 emissions as this engine. But this engine is really weak. So in my mind, they worsened the car, because I'm absolutely sure the Firefly engine must also be cheaper to produce than the TwinAir, because this doesn't have the multi-air system. It's a conventional valve train in this car. It cannot just be because, green and stuff. No. I think this is a cheap out. They put a cheaper engine in the car, which actually has sort of the same consumption, more or less, probably, half a liter difference, but who really cares, with a much, much weaker engine. And at the same time, they added this mild hybrid thing, which is basically just a larger alternator or starter motor or whatever it's working like, because I'm not an engineer. But I can just tell you that driving it, you notice nothing about this being a hybrid, because first of all, it's a manual, and most hybrids tend to be automatics, because it makes sense if the car drives on electricity as well to not have clutches and stuff in there. But this car, being a mild hybrid, means it does not drive on electricity. It always drives on the engine, and basically the hybrid system just gives the engine a little boost. But now I'm in third gear, it's reasonably flat. If I floor it, I mean, maybe there was a little boost, but there's no sign and nothing showing it. So it's kind of difficult to know, because you certainly do not feel like you're getting a boost, like the car is being any faster than it is. In general, I think hybrids with manual gearboxes are dumb. I've driven only the Honda ZRZ before this, and I never liked that car. But in this car, let's be honest, the hybrid system is a bit of a scam. This engine feels pretty anemic, so it doesn't feel like it has a lot of power. It does rev quite high to, I think, 6,500 revs, but it's not like it's developing a lot of top-end power, so I don't really see if the hybrid system is adding anything. What I think is it might be working low down, because if I go into a high gear, like let's go into fifth, doing 40 kilometers an hour, and lugging the engine, man, it doesn't really recover, but it doesn't also want to die on me. So I think at least maybe in that way the hybrid system does make a little bit of sense. But really, having a car with a 1 liter engine, having a hybrid system, seems like a bit of a waste to me. And more obviously than not, I think this is a bit of greenwashing, because the hybrid battery in this car is 100 watt hours. And just to put it into perspective, a Tesla has like 100 kilowatt hours. That's 1,000 times more. My bicycle, the fake Lexus, has 760 watt hours. So it has 7 times more battery capacity than this hybrid car, which basically tells me that the battery, the hybrid system in this car is more of like a gag. It's a marketing material. You see, in Italy, there are congestion zones, which means traffic is limited in those zones and not everybody can drive into there. There are exceptions for electric vehicles and in many Italian cities for hybrids. So in some cities in Italy, you could actually drive into a congestion zone with this car because it says hybrid on it, but it's basically the farthest thing from a hybrid. So basically this car is a little bit of a scam. And since the Panda is frankly at the end of its model run, with the 2 offered engines being the natural gas powered one and this one being like the main engine that people will actually want to buy, I reckon, I think this is a downgrade for the Panda. I mean, sure, the car is old, it's due for an upgrade, but the old TwinAir engine, it was just better. It had more power, it was a more modern engine. I don't know about its reliability, it might have been a more fragile engine, because I know the TwinAir systems, they are very, very picky on oil. So if you don't do the oil changes regularly and use the exact oil, the multi-air system will go bad. And this might be a reason why they, for this cheaper sort of car, went away from it. I think it's bad because the other engine was much, much better than this. And since this is basically the only engine you're left with, they made the Panda worse. Would this be a reason not to buy a Panda? Honestly, I don't know. Because I wouldn't buy a car like this? Well, for me, it would be a reason not to buy it, because these cars have now at top 70 horsepower, and I think it's not enough. Sure, if you pull around town, maybe, but I don't know, a bit more horsepower. I mean, come on, the engines, they don't use that much more fuel, and especially the TwinAir didn't use a lot more fuel. One good thing about this weird hybrid car is that it has a 6-speed manual gearbox, whereas the other, the 1.2 liter, it only has a 5-speed for reasons. I reckon the 6-speed in this car is for reducing the emissions, as usual, because now driving it, I haven't really used them, maybe if I went onto a motorway, but I think the 5 speeds would probably have been enough on this car. And now I could go into the part where I tell you how it drives, but I mean, this has been done to death. It's the typical small Italian car. It has to be driven with some verve. It's easy to drive. It has no power. It actually handles quite nicely. The term nippy comes up every time you drive one of these small cars, but nippy is like very weird, because how do you explain it? It's just the car feels very agile, it feels fairly small because it is. It is reasonably comfortable on these sort of bumpy roads, and it can even be fun to drive. I mean, especially compared to my mom's car, the Melanzana, the Eggplant, the Peugeot 108, this is miles better to drive. But then again, I don't know if you buy one of these economy city cars to have fun in. But it's nice to know that, you know, you could. What I find, however, is that the gearing is a bit too short for my liking, because this corner is one I would usually take in second gear, like now. And in second gear, you're like at 5,500 RPMs. So you would have to drive it a gear higher, but if you're in the higher gear, then it's kind of weird. Then you're in too high a gear for a 1 liter engine. You know, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't pull right. It's just a bit odd. But then again, I think I'm looking at this car from a driver's perspective, and that's not the real target audience of this car, especially a base model like this. So all in all, I still like the Fiat Panda. What I don't like is that they made it worse. They reduced the choice in engines and they took away its best engine. So now what we're left with is basically the leftovers, what Fiat decides to still give us after 10 years of producing this car. I hope they produce a new one. I hope it's going to be a good car, and I hope it's going to have better engines than this. But yeah, this is pretty much all I have to say about the improved new Fiat Panda, which is not that new, and it's certainly not improved. I am not happy. Oh, start-stop, right. Because this car has start-stop. But I am out of gear and I've declutched it, and so the engine turns off. Once I hit the clutch, it should turn on again. It does. Yes, but the start-stop basically only works when you declutch. So the hybrid system, it doesn't even help you in that regard, because it pretty much does nothing. It does absolutely nothing, because usually you'd say, okay, if you have a hybrid, it aids the transition between the car, you know, being with the engine off and the engine starting. But in this case, since you have to hit the clutch before you can go on, because this car is not automatic, even the hybrid system, it doesn't aid anything with the start-stop system. So I don't like that this car is a hybrid. It shouldn't be one. If you really want a small car that's a hybrid, buy a Yaris, which is a proper full hybrid and an automatic, and it feels like a hybrid, it drives like a hybrid, but not like this thing, which gives hybrids a bad name. The thing that annoys me most about this car is that it states hybrid on the back of the car in big letters. And I think anybody who drives this car and thinks, well, you know, I've driven a hybrid, they will come away with, you know, it's meh. pretty underwhelming. It's basically nothing, and I think hybrids are actually pretty good. I drive a Lexus LS600H, which is okay, the other extreme of the spectrum because it's a 5-liter V8 and an electric motor. But I think hybrids are good. They raise the efficiency of the petrol engine. They are smoother to drive, usually with CVTs. And this thing does nothing of that. So basically it just slaps the name hybrid on what feels like a regular Fiat Panda, and it will deceive people. But then again, it's a scam, so you can drive into Italian inner cities. But this is it. I have ranted enough. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos in the future. Leave a like if you liked this video, and comment down below what do you think of these mild hybrids and hybrids with manual gearboxes. That's it. Thanks so much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.